All right, well, good morning, everyone. This is Celeste Carmichael, and I want to welcome you to the Campus County Connection webinar series with today we're going to be with Jackie Davis-Manigaulte from New York City, and our topic is parenting a second time around. So we have a tight little group here, and if I can just ask you to take your chat and open it up, you'll see a little box on the top of your screen that says chat. If you click on that, it'll open up a chat box, and in the chat box, if you can take a moment and introduce yourself, that would be fantastic. So let's see if we have anybody in here. Excellent. I don't know if I said this is Celeste Carmichael from Extension Administration. And I will tell you that we are going to be recording this. We are recording this, so it will be available if you want to share it with any colleagues or stakeholders. All right, so from Maria, can you see that, Jackie? Maria DeLucia Evans from Albany County, resource educator. She teaches Strengthening Families program in Albany County.
Okay.
Welcome.
And I can't see that.
So you're going to have to go up to the top. Do you see the chat box up top?
In the menu on top.
You'll see participants and then chat. If you click on,
I'm seeing the screen where you have the course description up.
Mm-hmm. On the very top of the screen in the light blue bar on the top, towards the right. You should see a little button that says chat, and it's okay. We'll mind the chat for you, Jackie, and read things that come in.
I should tell you, I have a Mac, so I don't know.
Oh, well, there you go. that makes things probably look a little bit different, but that's all right. That's all right. Okay, so Jackie, I'm going to move over to your slides, and if you want to just take a moment and introduce yourself as well as the project, that would be super.
Well, good morning, Dina and Maria, and everyone else out there who's going to listen to this in the future. I'm Jackie Davis-Manigaulte. I'm a Senior Extension Associate with Cornell University Cooperative Extension, where I have responsibility for oversight of our youth development programs, which are too many for me to mention at this time, but I will mention that includes the 4-H youth development program, as well as the principal investigator for our Act for Youth initiative, and several other mentoring and science education related projects, and including our parenting education program, PASTA a Second Time Around, which we're in our 5th year of implementation in the New York City area. So it's been a journey, and I'm glad to have this opportunity to share my experience with you in hopes that it might inspire you to join this implementation and research model at some point. So we can go to the next slide. I know that I'm talking to folks who are already familiar with PASTA, but for those who may not be familiar with the program, PASTA stands for Parenting a Second Time Around, and it was designed specifically to meet the needs of grandparents, relatives, and other non-parental caregivers who are parenting related and non-related children. It was developed by faculty member Jenny Berkmeyer, who I had the pleasure of knowing, and extension educators Isabel Jensen and Denise Bariano, as well as Gerald Walker, Esquire, in 2000. And the goal of the project is to equip grandparents and kinship caregivers with additional resources and information that will support their efforts to confidently raise their kin in today's ever-changing environment. You may be a relative caregiver for any number of reasons. Some of the most common reasons include parental incarceration, teen pregnancy, parental substance abuse, mental illness, or disability or death of a parent. So those are just some of the reasons why people wind up serving as kinship caregivers. Next slide, please. Just to give you a little bit of background about the the status of what's happening in terms of grandparents raising grandchildren. In 2014, there were 3.4 million grandparents serving as primary caregivers for grandchildren, and approximately 1 in 10 grandchildren live with grandparents in 2014, 35% of whom were raised solely by their grandparents. And the care provided tends to be for 3 or more years. And approximately 54% of grandparents report providing long-term care. That means 3 or more years, and we're talking about youth who are 18 years of age or under. Next slide.
Okay.
The next slide.
I'm working on it.
Okay. Sorry. So there are many, many reasons why it's preferable to have kinship caregiving, and some of the primary reasons include that there tend to be fewer problems with school performance, more autonomy in decision making by the parents and the family and the youth, and fewer problem behaviors. We're going to probably change that word, but fewer issues in terms of the behavior of the children just being in a setting where they're with family and people who they know who care for them. It provides a more stable and familiar home, and so there tend to be fewer behavioral problems and disorders than children in, perhaps, for example, the foster care system. There are also economic benefits. Donna Butts, who's the executive director of Generations United, stated in the Associated Press in 2012 that kinship care is in the interest of the government, given that it saves taxpayers an estimated $6 billion per year. And in general, kinship caregivers face, they have their own challenges. You know, it's a transition, this role from custodial grandparent to creating a significant physical and psychological environment for the child that's safe, and also some of the challenge that they face themselves, including some studies have shown that they have increased levels of stress, anxiety, depressive symptoms, and various health problems. So those are some of the challenges that they face, and so needless to say, they sometimes are in situations where they don't always know where to turn or what kind of resources are available to support them. And in fact, there is a lack in many cases of access to some of those resources. Next slide. So that's one, for all of those reasons and many, many more, our colleagues at Cornell, both on campus and off campus, work together to develop the PASTA curriculum, which was recently, you're seeing the new cover hot off the press. This is the latest version of the curriculum, which just was revised in the summer of 2015. In fact, a student that I had working with me that summer, my CCE intern from as courtesy of the Department of Policy Analysis and Management, made it possible for me to have a student who helped support Denise Variano in making the revisions to this curriculum, which it's a 16-hour curriculum. There are 8 workshops in PASTA, each of which are 2 hours, and the topics include the items that you see listed: the basic child and adolescent development information, discipline and guidance, which there's always a lot of discussion and excitement around that topic, as we have folks who are very used to a very old school way of parenting begin to try to grapple with why and some of the reasons why we may need to do things differently today. Acknowledgement of some of their feelings, because while they love their grandchildren or their nieces or nephews, or younger sisters or brothers, they also, this requires a big change in lifestyle for them, and they really go back and forth with the challenges of how their own mixed feelings, the good ones, and then sometimes the challenges of being in this position. And in many cases, the rebuilding of a family, acceptance of this new, position that they may be in, and even if they've been in it for a while, still, just dealing with some of the challenges that occur in the situation. We've had places where the mothers of the children are totally out of sync with the grandparent or relative, and they're not communicating, or they're fighting with each other, and some of them have eventually come in with stories about how they've reconnected as a result of things that they've learned in our very classes. So that's been very exciting. The whole issue of living with teens, dealing with social media, trying to give them autonomy, just all of those kinds of issues, and of course all the legal issues that come up. We always have an outside speaker, usually a lawyer, provided through one of our partner agency, which is the New York City Department for the Aging Grandparents Resource Center, have those connections and are able to help us provide people who are really expert in their field and able to give us a lot of real up-to-date information that the parents find very, very helpful. Next slide.
So Jackie, how long did you say this curriculum has been around?
I think it's been since 2000.
Okay.
There were other iterations maybe prior to that, or kinds of programs they were doing, but this curriculum, as I recall reading from we weren't doing it in 2000, but it's been around for a while.
Okay. And how about Dina? You have been teaching and using PASTA, right? Just kind of curious. And I don't know if Maria, if you've used it at all, but add something to the chat if you would, how long you've been using this resource. It'd be good to know. Okay, I'm on to the next slide there, Jackie.
So here's a little bit of information about our work with PASTA here in New York City. The kinship care situation is even more urgent in New York City. We have practically half the population of the state is here, and our numbers of kinship caregivers is higher, with about 30% of grandparents living with grandchildren who are serving as caregivers. And so with that in mind, when a training was offered in the New York City area I think it was in November of 2011, I decided to attend that training along with one of our other cooperative extension in New York City colleagues. And at that training, I actually met Giovanna Montalvo-Bear, who is the director of the Grandparents Resource Center, which operates out of New York City's Department for the Aging. And it just so happened that right around that very same time, the Smith-Lever RFP or RFA came out and we decided to apply for one of these. I had the benefit of working very closely with the program work team for parenting education on campus with Dr. Rachel Donovan and Dr. Kim Kopko. And so we had been talking about how, trying to raise the bar and also get more recognition for these parenting education in New York State within our program work teams. And so when I was encouraged locally to apply for a Hatch grant, Smith-Lever grant, the first thing, because I had just gone to the training, that came to my mind was to do something related to parenting. And we wound up, so I talked with Rachel, assuming that she would want to do this, and knowing you need faculty support to do anything, and she encouraged me to apply directly for the grant. So this was a really unique opportunity. She provided a lot of support to me through the whole process, which included learning about working with the IRB, that whole process, and just the whole process of doing the application. You do an initial application for a Hatch grant, and that you submit in around November or December at the very latest, I think. One program year, then you're getting all the New York City sound in the background. This is authentic. So I can tell you, this is welcome to my world. So we actually went through that Hatch process. It turned out that my project wound up being, I think it's called integrated research, because it included both I was going to have a research component where I wanted to test the effectiveness of the project, as well as just the implementation of the curriculum, because it wasn't being implemented in New York City by cooperative extension anyway at that time. And so we set up the project with a control group, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that design in just a second.
So I think the beauty of, PASTA and the Parenting Education Program is really one of the finest examples of research and extension working together. And those the funds that are there for integrated projects are really just for this, really to help develop some research based on the needs of a community. And the Parenting PWT was really listening, and as educators had, were experiencing some things in the community. So I think PASTA really comes out of the heart of what real extension is really about. So this is a great example, and I'm glad that you mentioned the Hatch and the Smith-Lever funding to support this. So Jackie, a few things have come in the chat, and I know that let me go ahead and read those out loud so that you have the ability to think about them and maybe respond a little bit. So from Dina, she was trained in 2011 and has been using it ever since. From Maria, she hasn't used it but interested because through the Strengthening Families program, we often have other caregivers attending with the youth, and I see a need for more support for them in their situations. When it's delivered, does it need to be the full 8 workshop series, or can you pick and choose which workshops would be most appropriate and just offer one? So.
Well, if you want to consider it that you've done the PASTA program, you need to do all of the sessions. It's not really, I think you could use it. You can pull a session out if you so chose, but there's a continuity to the sessions, and it's actually designed so that you have a discussion, and then they go and try certain things, and then they can come back and reflect on that and move on to the next subject matter component. So it wasn't developed with the idea that it would be done as individual sessions. So I guess I think Denise and everybody else would want me to say that it's really, that's not the real intent of the program. Could you pull out a piece or two to do something special for a group? Probably, but you'd be missing, you certainly wouldn't be able to add to our research base of talking about, of doing PASTA with the pre-post test and being able to say whether or not it was valid, because you would not have implemented the program fully. So.
And Dina had, shared another statement that pretty much says the same thing. I believe that the program works best if you include all of the workshops. So there you go.
The one thing that we have done is we've combined. There's one session, I think it's the one on working with teens, dealing with teens. Sometimes we will do the 2 sessions in one for that particular session as a way of shortening the program somewhat. But we're considering doing that. We haven't actually done it, but it's something that we're thinking about doing because of the fact that, especially in our case, once I describe the program design, you'll see it takes a fair amount of time to get through the program.
Okay, so next slide, Jackie. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And Kim had mentioned that we were talking about Hatch and Smith Lever and applying for that. It is in New York City is kind of a unique in that it's not really treated as a county. New York City staff are like faculty. So Jackie was able to apply as a PI for this project as a New York City staff member, but typically Hatch and Smith Lever are not intended for counties to apply for that research and extension funding. But if you work with a department, oftentimes there are good collaborations that are built for that. So thanks for asking that question, Kim. And I think that's some people may listen and say, wait a minute, can I apply for that? So Jackie's in a unique situation there in New York City.
Right, but I've been on several projects where I'm not the PI, but I'm still integrally involved in the projects. It's all about developing those relationships with people who are in those situations on campus.
Absolutely.
So, even if I were in a county, I would have figured out a way to make something like this happen, because it's all about, looking for the opportunities and realizing when they really fit within the goals and objectives of what you're trying to accomplish within your county. So you just have to keep your eyes open for those opportunities. So basically, because of some of the challenges of the project, we look for ways of providing incentives and for both the agencies and the partners in our programs. We're working along with the New York City Department of Health, as I mentioned. Well, and that's not correct. It's actually the Department for the Aging, to identify the partner agencies that we work with, and we expect those agencies to provide the meeting space. We expect them to recruit the participants and encourage their involvement throughout the process, because it is a long time. We're talking 8 sessions, and also to provide snacks and encourage them to stay connected throughout. We give them that incentive of a weekly Metro card for each participant, and also a $50 stipend upon completion of the program. And for the agencies within the last year, we want them to help us make sure that our program, they get the opportunity to have this really dynamic program, because it is an exciting program. And then recently, within the last year or so, we're also offering a $500 site fee for the site. And I'll talk more about why we're doing that in a bit. So can you go to the next slide?
Sure can. All right. Sorry, my screen is frozen here.
So, all right. Well, then I'll just
keep talking, and
will catch up with us. So before we even started doing the program in New York City, Denise Veriano came to New York City and conducted training for Luis Almeida, and my colleagues from the New York City Department for the Aging, Giovanna Montalvo-Bear and Helen Flowers, and myself, and some student interns that we had working with us from City College. And so we all received additional training in this program, and Denise has served as a sounding board and a guiding force for us as someone who has boots on the ground, many, many years of implementation of this program in Orange County, and she's also done some training in New York City as well. Luis was a key person for us in terms of implementation of the project in New York City. He's a long-time parent educator, working first with the HIV and AIDS project and as a trainer, and then implementing the PASTA project and other parenting education initiatives. So he and the rapport that he's able to connect as an experienced facilitator, as well as a father and a grandfather, he just there's not too much that they can say that he doesn't know how to handle. And we have some really interesting folks who come to our group who will challenge you. And he is always up for the challenge, and they all wind up the best of friends. And our graduation ceremonies are always the most exciting part of the project, just seeing everybody's jubilance and opportunity to reflect on all that they've learned through the program. This particular photo here shows shows Sonia Del Val, who was involved as a parent educator in that component of the program. Because in New York City, when we first started doing the project, our design was set up so that we would recruit at least 20 to 25 participants who were then broken up into 2 groups, and we considered one the experimental group and one the control group. And we would implement the program first with the experimental or the treatment group, and then then 8 weeks later, the control group would receive the project. So that was what we did in the first year that we did the program in 2012. And that was pretty successful, and people were very appreciative of the program, but we noticed that by the time it got around to that second 8-week group, there were always fewer people than who had originally signed up for the project. So as a way of dealing with that, the following year, we added a program, which was our nutrition program, for the control group to do while the treatment group was was receiving the PASTA program. And then after 8 weeks, we flipped it so that eventually everybody got both programs, but we changed the design in that way. Does that make sense, folks?
It does.
The way I just said that. Okay. So
that's to me. Any questions? Does anybody want to throw any questions in the chat, or if you have any comments for Jackie so far, go ahead and add them to the chat. It makes it most interesting when we have a little bit of dialogue. So, Jackie, are you ready to go to the next slide?
I am ready to go to the next slide, which kind of just is a description of what I just described. So it's called the switching, replication, randomization, or randomized experimental design. How about that? You know, it sounds, now you flipped past it, but basically the participants would sign up, and usually we do 2 of these groups a year on average. And on the first day of the class, they sign in on the sign-in sheet. They just sign in, and through the numbers that they give us, we do a randomized. We randomize the numbers and decide and break them up into 2 groups, and then they do the pre-post test, which I think you may be familiar with. There's a statewide parenting education survey that everybody fills out regardless of which program they participate in. So whether it's strengthening families or parenting skills workshop series or the PASTA project or anything else, there is a standardized statewide form that all of our program participants fill out as a result of we just developed this system as part of our program work team, parenting education program work team, to gather information about the general impact of our parenting education programs through Cornell Cooperative Extension. And so we fill those forms out in addition to the pre-post surveys that were designed specifically for use with the PASTA project. So a lot of filling out of paperwork, and that's all done on the first day that folks come, which is an orientation session. So in addition to coming for the 8 weeks for each of the programs, they come for an orientation session where they fill out all this paperwork before the first session, and then there's a closing ceremony, which is a lot of fun. So they're really making a huge commitment in time when they sign up for this project.
So Jackie, a question came in. Where do you typically recruit participants from?
Well, that was one of the main things that we count on our collaborators, the New York City Department for the Aging. They have access to many different groups that they work with, and so initially they were our primary source of program participants. So it helps to have good partners. Now I carry the information with me wherever I go. So if I'm going to a meeting, it could be on, I don't know, it could be on urban gardening, like the one I'm going to on Monday. I will have in my pocket, oh, by the way, I'll have information about the program. And that meeting happens to be with the New York City Housing Authority. So it's through major agencies. Right now I'm reaching out to Catholic Charities, Children's Aid Society. So through a lot of the other major organizations and contacts and network, it is challenging to identify the sites, even though it shouldn't be, because we have all of these folks in this situation. But these folks are very busy people too, doing the things that they're doing for themselves and their families, and so it's become more challenging. It's one of the issues that I was going to mention at the end of the program, and for some other reasons too. So we'll get back to that. But basically, we recruit through our agencies and organizations that we already have relationships, as well as the ones that we identify through the New York City Department for Engaging. So we could go to the next slide.
Okay, and I think that's really a good, New York City does that so well. A few other counties do it really well too, but it's a wonderful way of getting at a new and diverse audience, an audience that is really in particular need of whatever program that you have, and that's working with other agencies and organizations. So rather than trying to recruit directly on our own, working with the agencies that may have direct or more established audience connection with an audience that we have the educational information for. So I'm glad that that question came in, and I'm glad that you shared your experiences, Jackie, because I think New York City really does that so well. And Dina had mentioned in Suffolk we rely on the agencies that request the program, like libraries, to help recruit participants. Also have waiting lists and through CPS partnerships. Do you know, I bet you know what CPS partnerships are. Do you know what that is? Okay, so maybe Dina, if you can describe what that acronym means. It's probably a children's services of some sort, but I don't know what the P stands for. So
all of these acronyms, we're in the world of acronyms. But yes, you've just given me some
Child Protective Services. There we go.
Oh,
okay.
Absolutely.
Yep.
No brainer. Very good. And we have reached out. We called it the Agency for Children's Services in New York City. So, and we have shared our information with them as well. So, yes, we're on the same page. But the libraries, I don't know that we've reached out to libraries. So, thank you for that tip, Dina. So, and obviously, some of the beauty of this design is that it allows us that all the caregivers get the program. We wanted to begin to build what's called an evidence base for the PASTA project. It's so wonderful. It's being used in over 20 states throughout the country, as well as a number of counties in New York State. And we wanted to begin, it's certainly research-based, we know that, but we feel this program deserves to be evidence-based. And so it's like the only way to build that evidence is to do these controlled research studies. So that's how we got in this business. But sometimes when you do that, the people who aren't in the, who are in the control group, they don't get the benefit of the program, and we didn't want that to be the case here. So that's what we liked about this particular design. And also many of the people absolutely love the nutrition program. In fact, one of the challenges that we've had has been that sometimes people think that the PASTA is the name of the nutrition program. So it gets kind of confusing. And we're able to accomplish what we want to accomplish in terms of getting research feedback about the program. We have a research design that's going to allow us to begin to build that evidence base. And so that's what we think is good about this design. That's from our educational perspective here on campus, and as the deliverers or implementers of the program. Can we go to the next slide? This one, which I don't know if we can really, you can see it, but you may not be able to hear it. This slide actually would have given you a sense of the benefits from the participants' perspective. And it works from my computer, but we're not sure that it's working. You're going to hear the sound?
Yeah, you won't hear the sound on here.
If you can
but
the setting, they can at least get the benefit, and I can just say a word or two, and we'll just keep going.
Do you want to see the
the visual, yeah, just so they don't think I put in a slide with just a black box on it.
All right. I need to keep talking, and I will find it.
And basically, this is the setup for a slide of the graduation ceremony at the Brooklyn Center for Independence of the Disabled, which was a phenomenal partner that we had during year 2, which was the first time that we were doing the nutrition and as a control while we did pasta with the project. And in all of our sessions, we had this graduation ceremony, and during the graduation, we always allowed time for reflections, and the participants get up and talk about how they felt about the program. You can see several of the partners at the head of the table, folks from the Department for the Aging, as well as our internal collaborators from our nutrition and health program. And this person is talking about, you know, how he's reading labels now and changing his eating habits as a result of what he learned about label reading, and he's glad that he's still alive. And then he's talking to Luis, if this piece will move, and he's explaining to Luis how he's listening to his son more, and it was very clear. And then another person also got up and shared about listening as well. So listening was a major benefit that both shared as part of their reflections. So that was one example of a participant's perspective on the impact that the program made for them. And there's nothing like hearing it in their words. I can't even begin to imitate that. So next time, when we put it on, and we'll have it set up so you will be able to hear that.
Well, I think what we can do is I can send the set of slides, if I've got your permission to do that, to the participants, and that way everybody will be able to see and hear it on their own. Is that okay with you, Jackie?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay.
So let's go to the next one. And this one is not this wasn't even intended to be a slide. This is just giving you a screenshot of the story of what happened to another one of our participants. This was Raquel Grant. This was on Fox 5 News. Believe it, it's true. It happened this past year. She became the caregiver for her 2-year-old grandson, Joseph, and it took her 2 years for her to obtain full custody. She has a 30-year-old daughter who has a disability and wasn't able to care for her son, and she had to go through a lot of different hoops in order to get custody, including taking a parenting course. And so she talks about that in this, and we've given you the clip here so you'll be able to see it yourself. And then the Grandparents Resource Center, one of the staff people from there talks about all the different ways that they provide support as well. And that person is Helen Flowers, who is our colleague that works with us on this project. So here's a way of showing how our program is making real life program impact difference in the lives of our people. And our project had a role in helping her get custody for her grandson.
And this is another great clip. So when you do get the slides, take a look. Go to the feed there from Fox 5 News. But a great success story. Really wonderful. So Jackie, the other question that just came in is, do you offer child care if they have younger youth?
You know, we don't, but that question just came up with a new agency that we're recruiting for the project, and that would be part of what we would expect the agency to to figure out how to make happen. We are not in a position to do that. We just have our staff who are there to implement the program, and we don't recommend having children in the room while you're trying to do the project. So that is usually something that we ask the agency to work on. Would be great if we were able to have a volunteer who would do that, and we are looking at some strategies for getting additional volunteers to work along with us in implementation of some of our programs. So having someone who could support our parenting work either in that way as well as helping to assist with the facilitation of the groups is something we're looking at. So, but moving right along, because time's moving along.
It is.
So the other beauty of this project, we collect the data, as I mentioned before, and then we're very, very fortunate to be working along with folks on campus through the Human Ecology's Policy Analysis and Management Department who are able to take that data and actually analyze it and provide us with information to let us know whether or not the work that we're doing is making any kind of a difference. So here is an example of some of the kinds of results we're able to get as a result of having that kind of partnership. This would not be something that we could do locally. So it's made all the difference that we have this connection to campus to make this happen. There are 23 different measures that are being tested through the surveys that we do, and we found that there were at least 4 measures in which there was a significant difference between the control group and the treatment group as a result of the program implementation. And that included an increase in the awareness of resources to help them that were available to them as kinship caregivers, an increased comfort in asking for help from community resources, an increased ability to cope with the stresses of being a kinship caregiver, and an increased understanding regarding the different types of custody and care arrangements that are available. When they talk about other things, but these were the items that turned out to be significantly different at this particular time. There are some other areas that have shown some significance on subsequent reports, and all of our reports, I think, are available on the Parenting in Context website if you want to see those in more detail. The next slide, which you can go to, just shows another view. They do the best slides in the world, in terms of just graphically showing you through pie charts and bar charts and all kinds of means the difference that you're having. So that same information is provided here in the form of bar charts. And it's just great to have this information and to know that the work that we're doing is making a difference. And we are knowing that as we move forward, we'll be able to just increase the number of participants that are going through this process, and then and hopefully grow the evidence. That's our long-term objective with this. And obviously, we need other counties to consider using this kind of an experimental model, because we need as much input as possible. It takes a lot to get to a point where you've gathered enough evidence to be able to say that a program is evidence-based. And so this is we're just skimming the surface. And plus, there was a lot we had to learn about even collecting the data correctly and making sure that, that we're just keep getting the right information to campus, and just all of the details of what it takes to really do an experimental program that's going to follow a protocol that is going to be acceptable to have a real research-based project. So can we go to the next slide? Another thing that's been really exciting about this whole program, the PASTA program for us, is as a result of our relationship with the Parenting in Context program, we've had the benefit of having a Cornell student as part of the Cornell Cooperative Extension Summer Internship Program with us each year for the past 3 years. And the students have done many, many things, from help us write our proposal for the following year to helping with direct implementation of the project in the classroom, to also helping with focus groups where people who were in the program in prior years were brought back together to see how they've continued to use this information, what's really resonated with them in the time that they've since they left the program. And this is, if you're looking at the picture on your right hand, all the way to the right is the student who worked with us this past summer. That's Jessica Hajdukovic, I just messed up her name, who is from, is now a senior. In fact, she probably is graduating as we speak, or may have already graduated. Yikes. And she worked, this was a focus group that she held at Hudson Guild in Manhattan. And so we're really, this was just a shot of her with that audience. Not only did she do the focus group, but then she analyzed the data and compiled a report. She also worked with IRB to get all of the paperwork to allow us to do the focus groups, to conduct the focus group. So there was a lot involved, and she was a really wonderful person with us. Can you go to the next photo or slide? Here she is at the end of the year of her time with us. I guess this was in August, meeting with the partners to give us a report of what she had learned for while in her time with the program through the focus groups, her analysis of the results of what she learned. And we conducted 5 focus groups throughout the city during the summer. And so it was a lot of work, but Jessica is a real taskmaster and is going to do well in whatever she does in the future. We'd love to have her back with us, but we have to figure out how to get the funding to make that happen. But
so Jackie, it looks like this might have been an interview. Is that correct? So that's a link to a little interview with Jessica.
That's a link to this is a link to a video that was actually put together by CCE of 3 different summer interns. Awesome. Who just talking about their experience. So this is on YouTube, and that's a link to it. This is a screenshot from that. You know, I learned all kinds of tricks doing this. So this is from that video. Yes.
Okay.
And so you can look at that once you receive the slide. But she was definitely a wonderful student, and it was great working with her. Another way that we worked with students in this past year, very recently, this semester, was working with the capstone class that was run by Professor Maureen Waller. And she was running a class where her students had to do a capstone research project, and it turned out that the data that had been collected from focus groups that we had done for during that year, the very focus groups that Jessica helped to set up and implement were more thoroughly analyzed by students qualitatively, 2 teams of students who analyzed the data qualitatively and quantitatively, and then provided us with an analysis, provided us with the results, the findings from their project. And it just so happened I was on campus and able to meet with the students. That lower shot, it shows me, that's me in the orange, and with the students in the classroom. And Luis and my colleagues from the Department for the Aging and another member of our New York City staff, our communications specialist, Kritika, were in New York City, and we were able to, these are screenshots from the WebEx session that we had where they were doing their reporting. So their discussion was extremely, was rich. They provided a lot of good examples of what could be done as a result. These are some of the findings that they came up with. in terms of things that these were key things. They felt that the young people, the program participants had a better understanding of their legal rights. They were more knowledgeable. This is what the focus group participants, who now are 2, 3 years, 4 years out of the program, they had a greater knowledge still of their resources available. There were certain characteristics that they discovered in the quantitative group about those who dropped out of the program versus those who didn't. They tended to be less interested or not married, and living and not married and living with other people. So, but those were just some of the things they found out. They also felt that the groups that tended to have the greater improvements were those who were co-parenting, those living with the children's own parents or with a partner, and caregivers with more than 5 years of experience. So in the qualitative group, they realized that times have changed. They were shifting their style from more authoritarian to authoritative, improving their communication skills. They saw the workshops as a means of social networking, and they really, really want to get back, still come back together. That's one of the main things that comes out. So we're actually going to work on trying to figure out how to make that happen. And they definitely had a increased knowledge of the legal system and the resources in the community. So we can go to the next slide.
That's awesome. Jackie, I'm just being mindful of time. It's 10:25 right now. You want to just kind of keep plowing, or is there one that you want to go to?
I think we can go pretty quickly through what's still here. So we also received many different recommendations from the students as a result of their presentations, and you can see several of them listed right here, and we do intend to review these recommendations and act on them as we plan our next steps with the project. So we can keep going. And that was Jessica with the group on the end. So these are some of the major kinds of issues that have come up in the time of doing the project. One is attrition, the fact that in some instances you lose people from the time that they do the pre-test to the time of the post-test, and we know that that's a issue because of the length of the project. We also some of the issues that had come up at one point that I mentioned previously had to do with the collection of data and whatnot, and I think we've developed some systems that will allow us to generalize that, to streamline that process and make it more effective as we move forward. We've gotten better with experience, and also that some of the things that we're doing may not apply for some of the other counties that are involved in the program doing PASTA because of differences in participant characteristics. But my response to that is the more different counties that provide data, eventually we'll have a bigger pool, and it will all, I think, work out. So we're just about there. We've got just one more slide. The whole issue of recruitment and some of the confusion with the name of the project, the PASTA, which I mentioned before, can lead to people thinking that this is a nutrition program. So we have to still work on that, and sometimes the participants themselves can get confused when they're doing their post-test as to integrating. We're a little concerned that might be influencing, especially for that second group, how they respond in some cases to the post-test. So those are some things that we're still juggling or thinking about or figuring out what to do. And then the length of the program, coming up with different models. In some instances during this coming year, we're even thinking about holding 2 classes per week as a strategy for shortening, the time of the overall project model time frame. But we are a little concerned about that because it could impact, time for reflection and practice. So that's those are the things that we're having to just deal with. But in general, we feel really good about what we've accomplished thus far with the project. Obviously, you can go, these are references which we are able to, I've been able to provide even more recent references thanks to the results of the information that I received, the wonderful reports that I received from the PAM capstone class. They provided me with additional, more up-to-date resources, so that these are some places that you can check if you want more information about this issue. And then I just want to say, as you can go to the last slide, that, you know, it's definitely the whole student involvement in the PASA project makes it feel like we've come full circle. This is Paisley Teresi in the center of this particular slide, who was the second student who worked with us with the project at the graduation of the Hudson Guild group. And they've just helped us feel, their input in has helped make the program even richer. And as they're learning, we're also learning. They're having a meaningful work experience, and they're at the same time enriching the quality of our work. So in this photo, you can see our collaborating agency members from the Grandparents Resource Center, as well as one of our partner agencies. This time it was the Hudson Guild Social Services staff. We have our Cornell folks, both from the nutrition program and the parenting program, student interns, and of course the most important folks, the program participants. I feel like personally this has been a learning experience for me, just learning how to do this, the whole research component, working collaboratively with folks on campus, and then seeing the difference the program has made. Getting solid information that helps us know that our work is making a difference. And I just want to thank you guys for joining us to discuss the program.
Your work is definitely making a difference, Jackie. I really appreciate you being here. There's a few questions and comments in the chat box that I'm going to read to you in case you have any follow-up with that, and then we'll wrap up. Maria is asking, is there required training to facilitate this and a cost for training the curriculum? And Dina shares, Jackie, we always use the name PASTA and follow it with grandparents raising grandchildren when we advertise the program because of the name confusion, possible confusion. Dina offers Denise Siriano in Orange County can do the training. And do you happen to know how long the training period is and the cost? So if there's anything there that you want to share, just kind of in wrapping up, and just before I sort of sign off with my comments, just a real big thanks to you, Jackie, for spending your time with us this morning.
Well, it's a pleasure being here. In terms of the training, you're probably best to speak with Denise directly about that. I think that we had 2 days of training, and so, and I think the cost was, for us, it was the cost of her travel, you know, and some of those kinds of expenses. But I think that would be something you'd need to work out directly with Denise. The curriculum, I think, is around $75 for the curriculum. At least that was our internal price. So, but I think that I'd be happy to connect you with Denise if you need help in finding her. But and thank you, Dina. I'll keep that in mind as we move forward in terms of a way to make sure people don't get confused with PASTA as a parenting education versus a nutrition education program. And I look forward to sharing more about our experience and learning about your experience, and would encourage your involvement, Maria. Anything that I can do, I'm happy to do to help you as you move forward.
Awesome. Thanks, Jackie. So the last thing that I'll just say is this is the last of our Campus County Connection webinar series for the year. We usually run them from September until, actually we have one more. I'm sorry, we do have one more. We have one more around evaluation with Monica Hargraves in June. We are coming to a close of the Campus County Connection webinar series. So if you have thoughts or suggestions on something that exemplifies research and extension working together, a project that may have received some funding to help it along, an experience that has staff and faculty kind of working together that can be shared, please send them along to me, Celeste Carmichael, CJC17 at cornell.edu. And just a reminder that all of the webinars in this series are, they're short. They're really intended to kind of build that peripheral knowledge, a lot like listening to, NPR or a show that's just trying to help you understand something that's going on. And they're all recorded. So we have 3 years worth of recordings for Campus County Connection webinars at this point, and they're all available on our staff site, staff.cce.cornell.edu. If you go to the Campus Program Connections page, which is in the Organizational Development Unit site, so if you went to Units and then Organizational Development, you would see Campus Program Connections there up on the right, and link to all of the recordings as well. So that's all I have. I just want to say thank you, everybody, for participating. Thank you, Jackie, for sharing. And this is a wrap. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Jackie, if you want to stay on for just a minute, I'm going to just turn the recorder off, and we can just kind of check in for a second. That would be good.
So now I see the blue line.